5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome or welcome back to the TBR Diaries. I hope you're doing good. Today I am doing the end of the year book tag. I think that's what it's called. It's what I'm calling it today. This tag has been going around for a few years. I think I'm a little bit late to the party this year. I think most people do it like at the start of October, at the start of the last quarter of the year. So I'm not going to delay any longer. I'm going to get straight into the questions. There are 6 prompts for this tag, and the first one is, are there any books you started this year that you still need to finish? Yes, there is one book which I started the audiobook for back in February. I started The Return of the King on audio. I had grand plans at the start of this year to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, to reread The Hobbit, and to read The Silmarillion before the Rings of Power Amazon Prime show came out. That show has since finished. I've still not seen it because I'm late to everything, it seems. But I do intend to finish The Return of the King and to continue with not The Return of the King, that is the 3rd book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I am still on the 2nd one, The Two Towers, which I do intend to finish, and then also intend to read The Return of the King, which I doubt will happen this year, but I do want to finish The Two Towers this year. I've been listening to the Andy Serkis narrations. They're really, really good, as you'd expect. So yeah, but otherwise, that's the only book that I'm still partway through that I haven't just started. I would usually have more sat on my currently reading shelf, but I think many moons ago, back in the first half of this year, I sat down and I just took everything off my currently reading shelf that I didn't particularly want to be reading. So it wasn't quite a DNF, it was more just putting them back on my TBR and not thinking too hard about it. So the second prompt is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the rest of the year? I actually have a whole TBR for that. I did an autumnal TBR on the 23rd of September, at the autumn equinox, to see me through the next few months. I'm actually doing quite well with that TBR, and you can go and watch it if you'd like to see what is on my list. But I think the one that feels the most autumnal to me for some reason is Babel by R.F. Kuang, which I haven't started yet. But there is something about the dark academia and the autumn which just feel like they go together. I feel like all the dark academia girlies and all the autumnal girlies are the same. The Venn diagram is a circle. So I'm really looking forward to getting to that. I've heard very good things, and I feel like it will definitely get me in the autumn, end of the year kind of a mood. Prompt number 3 is, are there any new releases you're still waiting for? And yes, there are several that are still due to come out in, I think, November of this year. But I think I actually want to reread all of the preceding books before I actually get to the new releases. So I doubt that'll get read this year, but all the same, there are 3 that I'm really looking forward to. The first book I'm really looking forward to is The World We Make by N.K. Jemisin, which is the sequel to The City We Became, which I read last year. I buddy read it with Beth from the Bookworm Trait, and I enjoyed it, but I knew when I was reading it that I would need to reread it because it was a little bit confusing. N.K. Jemisin's work can be quite not the easiest to read, you've really got to have your brain switched on when you're reading it, and I think it deserves a reread before I get to the sequel. It was a sci-fi contemporary mix, and it had several people who were the soul of the city of New York, and then there was more stuff going on, but that was the kind of hook of the book, and I'm really looking forward to the sequel. N.K. Jemisin is always an incredible writer. I love her books, so I'm very much looking forward to that one. I should stop saying I'm looking forward to these books because that is obvious, that's the whole question. The second book release that I'm looking forward to is, I've forgotten the name of it actually, but it's the 4th book in the Trials of Morrigan Crow series. I don't need to reread the first 3 books, but I kind of want to because I really enjoyed them, and they're middle grade, so they're really quick reads. And I think this is coming out in November sometime. I think it's been pushed back potentially, but I do have this one on pre-order, and I'm looking forward to it coming in because I always have such a good kind of cozy, whimsical, magical time when I read those books. The 3rd release that I'm looking forward to is Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn, which is the 2nd book in the Legendborn cycle. And again, I want to reread the 1st book because I don't really remember it, and I listened to it on audio and was, again, a little bit confused and thought I need to reread to really understand what's going on. Legendborn was a kind of contemporary fantasy. It was one of those where the magic is hidden from most people, and our main character, whose name I've forgotten, is going to university where she lives in America and kind of stumbles across this secret society, which is this like Arthurian magic society, and there's magical threats and there's all sorts going on. She is a black woman and she also has some like root magic, which she's like her inheritance is that root magic. So it was also about these like two kinds of magic and how they interacted in her life, if I'm remembering that correctly. And I really hope that's not a big spoiler because it could possibly be. But moving swiftly on, the fourth question is, what are 3 books that you're still hoping to read before the end of the year? And if you know me, you know I hate making decisions, so this was a tricky one to narrow down. Obviously I have like an October TBR, I've got my autumnal TBR, and I feel like those all go without saying, but I do have several books that I bought last year in 2021 and was really excited to read and just never got to them, and so I really would like to get to them soon. I've grabbed them to make my life easy when I'm editing. I don't have to find pictures. The first one is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. I think I bought this in like January of last year, so I've had it nearly 2 years now. This is a like space opera queer romance. I think it's like an arranged political alliance of a marriage, and presumably they develop feelings and some political space opera stuff happens, which sounds right up my street. This is A Marvellous Light by Freya, Marske. And this is another queer romance. This is a historical, fantastical queer romance, and I think it involves magical books in magical libraries, something of that nature. I think this is like Regency vibes with a magical library, which sounds, again, absolutely perfect. Also, this book is gorgeous, and I feel like it matches the aesthetic I've got going today, which is always nice, but not a reason why I want to read the book. And the third book that I would really like to get to before the end of this year is Our Violent Ends by Gong. This is the sequel to These Violent Delights, which is a historical, fantastical Romeo and Juliet sort of story set in Shanghai in the 1920s, I believe. It was this historical Romeo and Juliet story, but then there was this added monstrous threat. I think there was also some kind of like virus or illness going around. There was some kind of plague. And I quite like a plague in a book. The real plague that I've had to live through has not affected that too much. I don't know, there's something about disease. I shouldn't be surprised because I studied ancient disease in 2 degrees now. Anyway, I'm looking forward to this. The 5th prompt is there a book that you think could still shock you and become your favourite book of the year, or become a new favourite? And honestly, I don't know. I don't tend to know too much about books before I go into them, and I try not to like hype my expectations up too much. And additionally, I've recently read in the last month or so 2 absolute standout favourites of the year in Nona the Ninth and A Taste of Gold and Iron. And I think if I read anything that surpasses either of those, I might spontaneously combust. If I do get surprised with a new favourite, then I will be extremely happy, but I'm not going to be disappointed if I don't, because I've read some really good books this year, so I'll be happy either way. The final question of this tag is, have you started making reading plans for next year? And no, I have not. I don't think I'm really going to make too many reading plans, she says. I don't think that's true. I think I'm absolutely going to make reading plans with no intention of sticking to them, which is what I tend to do. But short answer, no. The only real plan I have is I'd like to keep buying less. I've not bought that many books this year, and I want to get my TBR down because it's a bit ridiculous. And as you know, I've recently moved, I have less space for books, so I kind of want to focus on the books I have a little bit more and not bring too many more in. But we'll see what happens. And that is all the questions. That is the end of the year book tag. I like this tag. I think like it's a good little reflection kind of a moment before we, well, if you're anything like me, before you launch into reading as many books as possible to try and get your total yearly book count up, which I know is stupid and arbitrary, but I also love a statistic. I love a spreadsheet. I want to read the things and get the numbers and do all that stuff. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I have enjoyed filming this tag. I hope that you've enjoyed watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.